in our constant effort at keeping the public updated and engaging with you as members of the press, the Fourth Estate, to update and also, of course, to try to encourage swimming as a sport. Traditionally, we have not looked at swimming as a sport, but it has been introduced here, and I'm very proud of our track record here in Nevis of encouraging swimming, working with the various ministries of the government and working with various stakeholders to make this a reality. We are not only promoting swimming for competition, we are also doing swimming on the island to try and teach our people how to swim. And so I encourage members of the press who have not yet taken the opportunity to go and learn how to swim if you can't swim, and to learn how to swim better if you can swim already. Let me also congratulate the Charleston Secondary School, my alma mater. The Charleston Secondary School emerged for the second time as champions of the Ginseng Classic, which was held at the Mondo Track on Sunday the 25th. That's an athletics meet, and I want to congratulate CSS. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is the National Day of Prayer, and all of our churches are open and are accepting individuals to come and pray. Pray for yourselves, for your families, for your communities, and naturally, pray for the island and the country of St. Kitts and Nevis. Churches are open, I'm told, from 12 noon to 1 p.m. for the general public to enter and offer private prayer. And tonight at 7 p.m. at the New Testament Church of God in Bath Village, there will be a church service for that National Day of Prayer. And we encourage all who can. Members of the press, I look forward to seeing you there at the New Testament Church of God this evening at 7 p.m. In terms of some quick updates on the geothermal project, I want to say that my update is I do not have an update. That is simply because we are expecting at the end of this month, and we are now at the end of the month, a position in relation to our bidding process for the drilling of the production wells. I do not yet have that information, and so as soon as I have it, I will make it available to the general public. What I will say, however, is that as part of the funding of the overall project, we did have some excellent meetings with the Saudi Development Fund. The government kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been invited to participate in this particular project, and they led a delegation here, and together with the Honorable Minister Conrad Maynard from St. Kitts, they would have come to Nevis, engaged with us in Nevis, gone to the site, visited the sites for the geothermal, and we are optimistic that the Saudi government will come on board with us to make this project a reality. But as I said, I will have concrete updates, I hope, by my next press conference. On our hospital project that is usually asked about by the members of the press, especially my good friend here from Vaughan Radio, I just want to tell you that we have all that we need in hand. The government has put together a very small group of technical people, technical team within the government, and we will be shortly inviting various contractors to engage with us to determine the best pricing that we can get to proceed with this important development. As I have said throughout, we recognize that this project has been delayed, but I emphasize for members of the press and the public that there has been absolutely no devaluing of the level and quality of health care that is being offered at the Alexandra Hospital. To the contrary, we have enhanced to a significant degree the quality of health care being offered. And so I want to disassociate the two issues. The absence of completion of the new wing does not at all affect the quality of care that is available in Nevis and continues to be available on Nevis. So I just wanted to make that very clear. I have some other updates, but I will get to those as I go. Let me go back to my congratulations. I have been advised that we have had some promotions within the ranks of the Nevis Division of the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force. From corporal to sergeant, we have Mr. Randolph Diamond, Devon Gavaya, and Ronrick Huggins. They all serve in Nevis, and they've all moved from corporal to sergeant. Congratulations to them. And from constable to corporal, we have Jean-Joseph, Samantha Claxton, Lowell Wallace, and Keith Pemberton have also all been elevated. And so I say congratulations to our officers for the excellent work that they continue to do in keeping Nevis, and by extension the Federation, crime-free and keeping us safe. Let me move quickly to the private sector. As we all know, the Four Seasons Resort has celebrated 33 years this year of being here and making a considerable contribution to the island of Nevis and the wider Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Part of that, our engagement with the Four Seasons has always been to encourage them to promote local talent where that local talent exists. And it is our hope, ultimately, to get to a point where the management structure there is reflective of the local talent and local abilities on the island. Consistent with that partnership, I'm proud to say and to announce and to congratulate these individuals. Jamari Tyson, better known to many as Fudd, has been promoted from Assistant Lands Manager to Lands Manager, and it was effective December 2023. Amal Lake has been promoted from Engineer 3 to Engineer 2. Hailey Nisbet has been promoted from Engineer 2 to Engineer 1. A massive promotion here. Dion Lake has been promoted from Assistant Chief Engineer to Chief Engineer at Four Seasons. Dion has been with the resort for a considerable time, and he has now emerged as the Chief Engineer. I believe, I hope I'm correct in this, that he's the first Nevisian to have filled that role as Chief Engineer. He may well be. But I extend congratulations to him. He has worked hard and has been with the resort since 2005. I also want to congratulate Vincia Jeffers. Vincia Jeffers has been promoted to Housekeeping Manager. Vincia has been with the hotel since 2010, and she started out as a front office receptionist. That's important because I say to our young people all the time, it's not where you start. Get your foot in the door, and then you show what you're worth. And so Vincia started as a front office receptionist. She's now the housekeeping manager at the Four Seasons. Similarly, I want to congratulate Kamisha Tuitt, who's now been promoted to restaurant supervisor. She started in 2019 as a server, a position which she would have held until now. Seeing the value that she brings, the hotel has promoted her to the position of restaurant supervisor. So I congratulate all of these young people. All of them are making us proud, and I'm hopeful that they and their families continue to do well. If I can switch quickly to tourism, I want to extend congratulations to Nevis's own Nikiva Stapleton. Why? Because she's Nevisian, yes, but also because Nikiva, whose family hails from Rollins, she is a model, a dancer, and an actress, and she took center stage with the American singer Fantasia at the Grammy Awards, which were held on Sunday, February 4, 2024. She danced on stage with Fantasia, and we were able to see a glimpse of Nevis on stage. Nikiva is working with us at the moment to promote Culturama 50, and so I would want to congratulate her. It was, I'm told, her first Grammy performance. She has hitherto danced with Beyonce, I think it was, at the Super Bowl halftime. And so here we have a young woman from Rollins who's doing great things on the international scene. I also want to commend and thank the Emerald Azura for their first call to the island of Nevis. It made its inaugural call to Nevis on Tuesday, February 27th, during its maiden sail to the Caribbean. The ship is a small ship. As you know, we tend to attract the smaller ships. It's 100 passenger capacity, and it docked in the waters off Charlestown. It brought 62 passengers and several crew to the island's shores. Significantly, Captain Julian Burgess, during a plaque exchange on board the vessel, indicated that it was his first time to Nevis, and we were pleased that he took the opportunity to play golf at the Four Seasons Resort. Nevis is enjoying a pretty buoyant post-COVID 2023-2024 cruise season. This year we have 52 calls, including inaugural visits from Emerald Azura and Ritz-Carlton Evrima. Those are the two ships that we're welcoming for the first time this year. Also good news, and I want to commend very much Mr. Rohan Kotai. Mr. Rohan Kotai is the principal of a jewelry store which has an office at the Four Seasons, and that jewelry store referred to as L'Elegance, fine jewelry and timepieces. They partnered with the Nevis Tourism Authority and Pandora to produce a new Pandora charm. And that Pandora charm, one featuring the flag of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the other featuring the Nevis Peak with the Nevis Nice slogan in it. The charms are US $75 each, and we think that it's a beautiful keepsake and reminder of Nevis for those who travel here, but also for locals. And so for those who have special occasions coming up, gentlemen, you're asked to buy these charms for your ladies, and for those who are visiting, we ask you to buy these charms to take them back with you as a permanent reminder of your time here on the island of Nevis. I want to commend this out-of-the-box type thinking and this type of promotion, which I think is really excellent, and commend the NTA under the leadership of Mr. Devon Libert and his team for all of their efforts in this regard. Restaurant Week, save the date please, will be from July 11th to 21st this year, and we are asked to get involved and to go out and patronize, of course, the restaurants. We are asked to note that the Ministry of Tourism, in collaboration with Carib Breweries, will be holding in Nevis our very first Grill Fest competition. That will be on May 25th. So all of the experts out there at grilling, get yourselves together. We're also having a Nevis Garden competition, a collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Tourism. And again, you're asked to get information on that from the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry of Tourism. We've had some and will continue to have some community-based tourism and hospitality training. Ministry of Tourism will be hosting a community-based tourism workshop for the St. Thomas's Parish community from March 12th to 16th. Sessions will be held from 5 to 7 p.m. daily at the MGR Park. The purpose of our thrust in community-based tourism is really to show our people how they can benefit from the tourism industry, to give our people an opportunity in their own communities to benefit from the industry. It is not just the hotels, it's not just the restaurants, but you in your local community doing local things can also benefit from this industry, as we know it, called tourism. The facilitator will be our own Mr. Leonard Stapleton, who will assist us in that workshop. The Ministry of Tourism will also be conducting a one-day hospitality training with industry workers on March 20th from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And the facilitator for that will be Mr. Noah Mills. The registration fee is $50 EC. Let me also announce that the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association, FCCA, they have launched their essay competition for our schools, and we're inviting, of course, all of our schools to participate in that competition. We've had good success in the past, and I'm optimistic that we'll continue to do so. Let me say a word, members of the press, on our Culturama 50 homestay program. I've had recent meetings with our hoteliers and with our realtors and villa operators to ask them to make specials available and to make their accommodations available. We anticipate an influx, a large influx of persons for Culturama 50, and we are already getting the complaints from some quarters that they can't find accommodation because a lot of the accommodation is sold out. I'm inviting our hotels to do the very best that they can to ensure that our visitors have special rates. I shouldn't say visitors, our people coming home have special rates available to them. But we are also encouraging Nevisians who have rooms in their homes, additional rooms, who have villas available, who have guest houses in their yards, those abroad who have homes here that are shuttered. We are asking you to open them up and make them available to people under what we are calling the Nevis Homestay Program. The aims of the program are to provide alternative and affordable accommodation to visitors and returning nationals within our communities, to provide an enriching, authentic Nevisian experience that will bring economic benefits to locals, and of course to assist in attaining sustainable tourism and the promotion of tourism within our rural communities. We want to spread the tourism around. We want to boost the economic development overall. We want people in Rollins and people in Brownhill and people in Jessops and people in camps to benefit from this. And so we ask invited persons to contact the Ministry of Tourism or the Nevis Tourism Authority to get your home, your apartment, your rooms, your guest house registered for this purpose. And we are indicating that there are no taxes that the government will be levying. We think that's important. As some people have said to us, well, if I make my house available and I make my 2 bedrooms available, will you tax me? So the answer is no. We expect that the demand will be for the month of July and into early August. And so we invite persons to get involved. Now, a very big announcement in my view, and something that I'm proud to announce, is that through direct negotiations with airlines, as we continue to try to attract greater airlift, I'm proud to announce that Win Air is resuming operations direct from St. Martin to Nevis on March 15th. So that is within the next 2 weeks. We expect to welcome Win Air back. Win Air, of course, had pulled out of Nevis, and they had pulled out largely because of low traffic, that there were not many people using the service. We feel now, 4 years later, that we are in a much better position and that our people have been sensitized to the need to use the service. I can say that I'm advised that the introductory rates will be extremely low, and the idea there is to encourage traffic. Win Air will operate a service Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from St. Martin to Nevis, leaving St. Martin at 6:20 in the afternoon, in the evening, landing in Nevis at 6:55, and then on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they will leave Nevis at 8 a.m. So the idea really is that they'll come in, they'll overnight here, and leave early in the morning. Now, what that does is two things. One, it allows people to go to St. Martin for the weekend. It allows people in St. Martin to come here for the weekend. They can come in on Friday night and stay for the weekend. It allows those of us who are here to go early Saturday morning, 8 a.m., and stay in St. Martin for the weekend, come back Sunday night. It also allows us to connect through Juliana Airport with onward flights. St. Martin, as we know, has a large number of connections to the United States, to Canada, and to Europe via Air France to France, and also via KLM to Amsterdam, I think, the Netherlands. And so you're able to connect with a number of carriers out of St. Martin. So it affords our travelers another opportunity. We, of course, travel mostly now through St. Kitts, but we recognize that airlift into St. Kitts is sometimes limited. This allows us the opportunity to go via St. Martin and to access good fares that are sometimes available via St. Martin. It also allows our people in St. Martin, we have a large cohort of Nevisians living there, an opportunity to come home, especially we are hoping for Culturama. So we are starting initially with a weekend service, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and we're hopeful that with demand we can increase that service even more. So we look forward to welcoming Win Air back. We will hear a lot more about that. I want to thank Mr. Claudio Bunkamper. I told him jokingly that we have Buncampers here, but it's B-O-N. He is B-U-N. But Mr. Bunkamper, who was very kind in terms of our negotiations, I called him up. I said, listen, I need Win Air to come back. And he responded very positively. I want to thank as well the team here in Nevis, the NTA, NASPA, the Ministry of Tourism, and the Ministry of Finance, who have worked very closely to ensure that on the 15th, Friday the 15th, we hope that Win Air will touch down again in Nevis for the start of scheduled operations at the Vance Amry International Airport. I also want to say, members of the press, that this is part and parcel of our ongoing effort to increase airlift as we prepare for our airport project. Incidentally, since I mentioned the airport project, I want to say that our design is progressing. Our engineers are on the ground. They're working. Our negotiations with landowners in the area, some of those negotiations have been concluded. Other negotiations are ongoing. But we expect to be in a position to move on that project very quickly. We will recommence our public consultations in the coming month of March. And so members of the public will have more information that is as advised to me by our lead on the project, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. He's been assisting with that project, and I can say that those public consultations will resume in March, and we're hopeful that members of the public and members of the press will come out. Let me switch quickly to the Ministry of Health and to give some updates there. I want to extend very warm congratulations to two of our doctors, Dr. Crystal Paris-Keynes and Dr. Shanelka Maynard. Both have been awarded Cuban scholarships to specialize in the areas of radiology and obstetrics and gynecology. Both doctors will now join Dr. Kentisha Daly and Dr. Callis Farrell, who are also studying at the Medical Science University of Santiago de Cuba and specializing in anesthesiology and ophthalmology. Now, you would have heard me say in the past that we have a lot of general practitioners who are coming back, but the island also needs specialists. And one of my concerns has been that we are still being forced to hire specialists overseas to have them come here to work when we have a large number of GPs, general practitioners. And so we have been encouraging our young people who are general practitioners to go off and specialize. And I'm happy that we now have 4 in Cuba. As I said, Dr. Crystal Paris-Keynes, who I am told will be doing radiology, Dr. Shanelka Maynard, who will be doing obstetrics and gynecology, and they will join Dr. Daly, Kentisha Daly, who's already there. She's doing ophthalmology, and Dr. Callis Farrell, who is doing anesthesiology. And we hope that when they come back, they will add, of course, to the cohort of medical practitioners and experts that we have available to us here as we build out our medical infrastructure. A special welcome is extended to Dr. Yosval Gantier. She's a new dentist here. She's from the Dominican Republic. And we also extend a welcome to Miss A.W. Horchimkon, who's from India. She's a nurse at our community health center, and she's recently joined our public health staff. We thank them both and look forward to their contribution to Nevis. I just want to sound here a word to our people that health and particularly nursing offers our people tremendous opportunities. Our young people who are looking for a profession, we continue to encourage you to enter the nursing profession. A number of reasons. Of course, our health is our wealth, and we continue to invest. We provide scholarship assistance to those who study nursing on St. Kitts at the Fitzroy Bryan College. We are also, of course, trying to fix a problem that we have. And that problem has been that many of our nurses have retired or are at retirement age. And we are trying to ensure that we have no shortage of nurses available to us. Currently, we're filling the gap by bringing nurses in from elsewhere, particularly the rest of the Caribbean and the Philippines. We have a number of Filipino nurses now and a number of nurses from St. Vincent, St. Lucia, and other places in the Caribbean. You've just heard me mention Miss A.W. Horchimkon. She's all the way from India. So we're encouraging our people to take up the opportunities to do nursing. That's a noble profession, and it has tremendous benefits, not only for yourselves and your families, but also for Nevis. Let me extend profound thanks to my cousins, the Marshall family of Brownhill. Many of them now reside in New York, but they did a recent donation, significant donation of adult Pampers to the Alexandra Hospital. We want to acknowledge that kind gesture. So Terry, Dale, all of you who are listening, thank you very much for this contribution, and we hope that we can continue to partner with the Marshall family. Everybody, of course, would have known Albertha Marshall of blessed memory. SKN Moves, Nevis chapter, in collaboration with Taiwan ICDF, they would have held their first quarter free health screening on Wednesday, February 21st at the Cotton Ginnery Mall. They did various services, including blood pressure, blood glucose, waist circumference, urine test, and body mass index. We had a total of 30 persons that benefited. We are asking more people when these opportunities arise, because knowing your status is very important. You take blood pressure. They call it the silent killer. They call it the silent killer because most of us don't even know that we have high blood pressure. So it's important to continue to check and know your status. That's critical. World Obesity Day will be commemorated, recognized on March 4th. It's done March 4th annually. And as part of our activities this year, as we fight against obesity, our health promotion unit will have their annual Fun Run in the Sun. It is Friday, March 1st, that's tomorrow, starting at 2 p.m. The year's local theme is Passing the Baton of Good Health. The relay consists of 5 legs. From Best Buy entrance to Charleston Police Station, from Charleston Police Station to the courthouse, from the courthouse to the entrance of the pier, or we call the Iron Shed, from the pier entrance along Samuel Hunkins Drive, turning up the road by Octagon, handing off at the top, and from the top of Octagon Road, going along Main Street and ending at the Simeon Daniel bust. You realize these are short distances, so it's intended to be a sprint. So members of the press or athletes, you can definitely get involved in this. It's said to be a very fun time. I'm not an athlete, so I will observe from the sidelines, but I encourage you who are to get involved. The Ministry of Health will be instituting a new policy. Members of the press, and members of the public, I think this is important. We'll be introducing a new policy from April 15th, 2024. So we're giving adequate notice that going forward, our hospital pharmacy, that is the pharmacy at the Alexandra Hospital, will only be accepting and filling prescriptions generated within the public health facilities in Nevis. Namely, the Alexandra Hospital, the Flamboyant Nursing Home, our health centers, our Nevis Eye Clinic, our dental unit, and our Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. These prescriptions must be on the facility prescription pad and must bear the facility stamp. Fees still apply to those who are not in the current exemption category. Now, why is that important? That is important because what is currently happening in Nevis, as you know, medication provided at the hospital is heavily subsidized. And what is currently happening is that there's been a breakdown in the system so that our hospital is being asked to fill prescriptions no matter where they come from, including prescriptions from St. Kitts. And private doctors are being filled at our hospital here. I am advised that we are currently accepting all prescriptions, those generated from within the Ministry of Health, as well as facilities on St. Kitts, and those generated from private institutions. We are dispensing on average 1,000 prescriptions monthly. Of that number, up to 45% are generated by private physicians. Now, this is creating a number of problems. One, the cost to the NIA. Two, the private pharmacies are now complaining and saying that because of our practice, it is putting them out of business. And that clearly is not how the system is designed to be. Incidentally, we are told that the pharmacy at the JNF Hospital in St. Kitts only accepts prescriptions generated from the public health facilities. So what we're doing is adopting a policy now similar to that applies on St. Kitts, to say that if you go to the hospital pharmacy, your prescription must have been generated from a public health facility, government-run facility. Now, we're no longer prepared to accept prescriptions there that are generated from your private health practitioners or prescriptions generated from your doctors on St. Kitts, for example. You must take those to your private pharmacy for that private pharmacy to fill those prescriptions. We understand that there will be some teething pains, as is expected, but we are asking the public's understanding in the circumstances. We do not want our private pharmacies to go out of business, and we cannot continue with this heavily subsidized arrangement for the entire community. So, once you go to the clinic, once you go to the dental health unit, once you go to the hospital, our pharmacy will honor those prescriptions and fill those prescriptions. Big announcement, Urology Associates will be hosting their annual free prostate screening at Occasion Center, that's just below us here. Pinnies on March 16th, 2024. Registration starts as usual at 6 a.m. Ministry encourages all men 40 and over to take the opportunity to get involved with this screening. Early detection saves lives. So I want to emphasize that very much. Another announcement that I want to make is this, that we have, as promised in our budget, been in the process now, in fact it has taken us well over a year, to engage in a comprehensive review of fees that are charged throughout our health services. I think I used the example some time ago in a press conference to say that the cost of a hospital bed for 3 meals a day was still 20 EC dollars. And that obviously is not sustainable. So we are seeking to review those fees, and we are reviewing those fees, evaluating them. We intend to introduce a new fee structure within the health services as of April 15th, 2024. So we're giving adequate notice. There will be an increase in some cases and an introduction of some fees within the hospital and some public health services. We encourage persons to call, please, and members of the press, because it's a long list. I couldn't bring it here today. So if you want, you can call the Ministry of Health to get the information so that we can familiarize ourselves with what the new fee structure is going to look like. As a follow-up to our launch of Maternity Guide booklet, the Ministry of Health will be instituting a program of services for pregnant women, utilizing the antenatal services at the community health centers. Starting from April 15th, 2024, there will be a waiver of the following first trimester screening services that can be accessed at the Alexandra Hospital for persons without insurance. So if you don't have insurance, you can access these services for free during the first trimester. Blood tests, and that covers CBC, RPR group, sickle, Hep B, urinalysis, pregnancy test, HIV. But I suppose if you're already pregnant, you don't need a pregnancy test. You're in a first trimester. An ultrasound at 20 weeks, that will be provided for free, and one dental examination at the dental unit, whether Charleston or Gingerland, will also be provided for free. We had a bit of a debate in the cabinet as to why women who are pregnant need dental examination, but the health officials said that they wanted this included, so we included it. We will see how that goes, but this, I think, is certainly another indication that the government is seeking to assist where possible. And this case, this is a specific policy prescription for pregnant women who can access some of the care for free in their first trimester. And these are first trimester screening services that we're offering for free. Also, please note that all of these are effective the 15th of April. And so we're giving adequate notice so that we can move forward and there are no surprises and that persons understand what it is we're seeking to do. If I can now segue to the Public Works. Public Works, we're pleased to announce to the people of Brown Hill that we are undertaking the reconstruction of the roadway from the basketball court down to low ground and to connect onto that road that takes us now to the Mondo track. The existing road has already been cleared. It's 1,500 feet of road. We have excavated, the base is down, and we will shortly be there to put in the curbs and to finish that well in time for Culturama. That road should be finished. The final layer of asphalt is being put down in Butler's Village. Some minor works are necessary, but we will be shortly out of Butler's. That project is now being completed. In Cocoa Gut in Rollins, that work is being brought to a close as well. We're very pleased with the work we've done there. The Public Works Department also recently completed the repaving of the area around the Long Point warehouse facility. That was a partnership with NASPA, and Public Works completed that work. We've also done some good work there at the credit union. Credit union partnered with us to have their parking lot resurfaced, and so we appreciate that we're able to do that. We also are sharing our expertise, and so the Public Works was very pleased to host 4 young surveyors from the Lands and Surveys Department of Montserrat, who were here with us from February 19 to 23rd. 4 youngsters, Brandon Chambers, Raston Fenton, Jazik Weeks, and Orlando Kelly. And we want to thank Ms. Nicole Blueberry, Chief Surveyor of the Montserrat Lands and Survey Department, for reaching out to us with this initiative. And so we're able to share expertise with the youngsters from Montserrat who were embedded with us for that week. As mentioned in our budget for this year, we have had to have another look at our water rates on the island of Nevis. And the Water Department has put out a number of notices already sensitizing the public to the adjustments in water rates. That has been really as a result of a number of factors. One, we want people to use less water. Or let me put that differently, we want people to conserve water. And that, I think, is important because water conservation is critical. We can't survive without water. And more we realize that water is becoming scarce, in part because people waste it. And so we encourage you to use less water. And one of the ways we encourage you to use less water, or to conserve water, if you prefer that language, is to ensure that it costs a little more, so that the temptation to waste it is a little less. That is certainly the logic behind it. That if it costs a little more, the temptation to waste it would be a little less. We also, of course, investing significantly. We have put in new water storage facilities at Pond Hill and Hamilton, and we are currently looking to get a new tank in Morning Star to replace a leaking tank there. And there's also been a huge increase, members of the press and members of the public, in our costs from overseas providers. For example, the price of a water meter, that little instrument that is used to measure your water consumption, that used to be about $40 in 2019. That is now over $100 for that water meter. And we, of course, purchase those meters and make them available for new connections. So we have had an incredible increase in prices globally that we are having to deal with, which has necessitated us adjusting our water rates. Customers are encouraged, of course, to pay their bills monthly. I want to emphasize that. If you cannot pay your bill monthly, please go in and speak to the water department and come up with a payment plan. I do not want people to be cut off. I know how frustrating it is to turn on your pipe when there's no water. Please pay your bills. And if you can't pay all, that's okay. Go in and have a conversation. They will put you on a plan so that you can pay your water bills. I also want to make it clear, members of the press and members of the public, that in all of our adjustments, we are ensuring that those persons who are in a vulnerable situation, that those persons are accommodated. So the increases will not affect those who are in that vulnerable category. What do the new rates look like? If you are a domestic user and you're consuming less than 2,000 gallons, you will remain at $13 EC per 1,000 gallons of water. So there's no change for you. If you're a domestic user using more than 2,000 gallons, then that goes up to $20 per 1,000 gallons. If you're in the category of a vulnerable person, you currently pay $3.90 as a monthly flat rate. You will continue to pay $3.90 as a monthly flat rate, so you're not affected. If you're a senior citizen living on your own with a fixed income, and you consume less than 3,000 gallons of water per month, you will be charged nothing. There will be no charge for our seniors consuming less than 3,000 gallons per month. If you're a senior living on your own on a fixed income and you're consuming more than 3,000 gallons, then over 3,000, you will pay $20 per 1,000 gallons. Hotels, commercial, industrial, up to 20,000 gallons, you pay $35 per 1,000 gallons. Above 20,000 gallons, you're going to pay $45 per 1,000 gallons. Irrigation, non-potable, $28 per 1,000 gallons. Our farmers, this is important. We have continued to maintain a reduced rate for our farmers. So our farmers who use less than 10,000 gallons will be charged at $8.50 per 1,000 gallons. And our farmers who are using more than 10,000 gallons will be charged $15 per 1,000 gallons. And those who fill up their trucks from the government mains in order to then sell that water, you will now have to pay $100 per 1,000 gallons. And so those are the new rates, and those rates will be published widely. We're asking the public to understand that all that we're doing here is to try and recoup a bit more of the cost of providing this critical service, and to ensure that this service is available to our people uninterrupted. On the issue of water, let me also add that we have concluded our bidding process in relation to wells to be drilled here on Nevis, additional wells. We want to do 3 additional wells. And of course, the members of the press and public would know that we hitherto contracted a Mr. Skip Hogue, who did a geophysical study of the island, and that has pinpointed a number of areas that have been suggested are the best areas to drill for additional water. We are hopeful that we will mobilize very soon and have that process ongoing, and that we will be able to deliver more water into our system in the shortest possible time. Community development. I want to thank publicly Mrs. Bronte Seabrooks Langlays for donating some steel pans to the Jessop's Community Center. She donated 2 double second pans, 2 single tenor pans, and 2 pan stands, pan cases, and some pan sticks. I want to congratulate and thank her, just as I did for the Marshall family, because we really want to encourage more of our citizens to give back. Those at home and those abroad. Give back whatever you can. And so we congratulate Mrs. Brantley Seabrooks Langlace and thank her for this generous donation. Black History cake decorating, members of the press who are into baking, we're having on Thursday the 29th of February, they're having it today, cake making, Black History cake decorating competition. This activity is used to celebrate our Black history and cultural heritage through cake decorating. This year will be a tribute to Culturama 50. The theme, a celebration of Culturama past and present. So that should be interesting. Let me move quickly to just a few points. Agriculture. We are pleased to announce that plans and arrangements are being finalized for this year's hosting of our Agri Expo at the ETW Park. That mega event takes place on Thursday 21st and Friday 22nd March. It is less than a month away, and farmers, agro-processors, horticulturalists, and stakeholders are ready to welcome you. And an exciting entertainment package is also planned to wrap up each day. Attractions include domino competition, raffles for a pig and a cow, a zoo, and the theme is promoting sustainable agriculture for a resilient future. Our patron is none other than Nurse Valerie Ermin Hendrickson, who, of course, is one of our leading agro-processors. And what a fitting patron for this event. I want to echo the sentiments of our Minister of Agriculture and Deputy Premier, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, to encourage you to register early. Every year, it seems, people miss the deadline and then start to call and say, please, 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 could you extend it for me? Well, the deadline is open now. Please go and register early so that you can get your booth there and can be a participant. We also, because I know this press conference is viewed outside Nevis, want to encourage our usual large cohort of individuals from Sabre and Stacia to come over this time. And we are hopeful that they come and stay. They normally would come up and then go back at the evening. But we want them to stay for all 2 days. And so, Sabre and Stacia, we're looking forward to seeing you again. Every year you come, and we're told that up to 150 are expected this year. For Culturama 50, things are going well. We announced previously that all contestants for the senior pageants have been identified. All of the other competitions, however, remain open. February 25th marked 5 months away from the start of the festival, and there was a release of updated co-activities and fringe activities. To view them, and we're inviting the Culturama music from as far back as 1978. So it's really an opportunity for you to get involved, some nostalgia, yes, but also as we gear up to Culturama 50. Persons interested in the jingle competition, members of the press, interested in the jingle competition, submission deadline is March 15th, and here what? You can win $5,000. That is the prize. So it's a significant prize. You can use that money to buy some Pandora charms or whatever else you want to use that money for. Let me switch to sports, and I promise I'll wrap up shortly. But in sports, the Ginseng Up Classic, as I said, and as we are told, was held at the Mondo Track facility here in Nevis. We had athletes representing 7 public secondary schools across the Federation. The Charleston Secondary School were the defending champions, and as I've said, they emerged champions again, so they've repeated. We also had Washington, Archibald High, Basti High, Virtuals High, Keon High, Gingerland Secondary, and Sadler Secondary. At the end of the event, Charleston Secondary emerged champions for a second time with 9 gold, 11 silver, and 9 bronze medals. We commend all the participating teams and the public who turned out in their numbers to be a part of this. We also want to thank Carey Breweries, the title sponsor, for their continued support of the event and their commitment to the development of track and field in the Federation. We also are having the Carifta trials happening at our Mondo Track facility, capturing the road to Carifta. It will take place here in Nevis on March 2nd, 2024, commencing at 10 a.m. This is a final opportunity for athletes from across the Federation to qualify for Carifta 2024, slated to take place in Grenada. The entrance fee is $15. We encourage you again to come out and support our athletes. We're also pleased that the Bank of Nevis High Schools Championship, that will be happening, sponsored again by the Bank of Nevis over the period 9th to 10th March 2024. It's a two-day event. The two public secondary schools in Nevis will vie for the title of Nevis High School Champion. The main sponsor, Bank of Nevis, we want to extend our thanks to them for, again, coming on board. Tickets go on sale, we're told, on March 4th, and we encourage everyone to come out and be a part of it. Then we have the big Inter-High Schools Championship. For the first time, the Nevis Athletics Stadium will be the venue for the TDC Inter-High School Championships. This 2024 edition will be a historic multi-city championship. The four-day event will see 2 days in Bastia and the 14th to 15th March, on the 14th to 15th March, forgive me, and 2 days in Charlestown, the 16th to 17th March at the Mondo facility. The field events will be hosted in St. Kitts on the 14th and 15th of March, and the exciting track events will take place at our very own Mondo facility here in Nevis on the 16th and 17th of March. At this championship, both public high schools in Nevis will compete against the public high schools in St. Kitts for the coveted title of Track and Field High School Champions of the Federation. The main sponsor, TDC, will again partner with St. Kitts Nevis Athletics Association to bring this event to fruition. We encourage the entire Nevis and St. Kitts community to come out and support our athletes in this historic event. The Leeward Islands Debating Competition. That competition is being held from February 29th, today, to March 3rd at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. The members of the Nevis Literary Society of the Nevis Sixth Form College will represent Nevis during the competition. Team Nevis will debate on day one, which is March 1st, and at 10 a.m. I'm not sure why they fix the debates in the morning. Normally it's in the evening. But this year we're told that debate is at 10 a.m. Nevis versus Montserrat. And the topic, higher education institutions should ban the use of artificial intelligence in academic discourse. That is the topic for debate 1. Debate 2, which will happen at 1 p.m., is Anguilla versus Antigua. The topic, social media is detrimental to the Caribbean's cultural identity. On Saturday, the 2nd of March, debate 3, it's at 6 p.m., St. Martin versus the winner of debate 1. And the topic would be the Caribbean region is adequately prepared to respond to future pandemics and health crises. Debate 4, which will happen at 7:30 p.m. on the 2nd of March, will be St. Kitts versus winner 2, and the topic, Caribbean nations have sufficiently improved their education systems to prepare youth for 21st century challenges. And then on Sunday, the 3rd of March, we have the finals. Winner of debate 3 versus winner of debate 4. And the topic, the feminist movement has become focused on attacking men rather than promoting the equality of women. We wish, of course, Team Nevis all the very best and hope that they can certainly come back with the championship from St. Kitts. Now, the last time we had the press conference, I think there was a question about our new system in education. There was an issue posed, a question posed about whether we had done any evaluation. And I'm told that the evaluation is continuing, but the Ministry of Education in response to that has said that across the Federation, we introduced in 2022 the inclusive classrooms in secondary schools. This is in alignment with the 2017-2022 Education Sector Plan. To date, there have been parent sensitizations, data gathering, and interviews with school leaders and heads of departments. The Department of Education monitors the grades of the students at the end of each term and also uses the common exam scores to determine how students can be best supported. The pilot and review process are both ongoing, and comprehensive reports of findings will be shared when they are completed. Inclusive classrooms were introduced in primary schools around 2000 and seeks to promote tolerance, equal opportunity, and cooperative and inclusive learning in all classrooms. So I hope that that provides at least a snapshot by way of response, and we anticipate that we'll hear more about that. I will leave matters there and now invite your questions, if there are any, for me at this final press conference for the month of February. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning to you.
LK Hewlett, Department of Information. The opposition has said that the NIA is receiving an extra $5 million from the federal government in terms of the CBI, their share of the CBI proceeds. Can you clarify that and say whether or not that is true? Has there been any update on working out the fair share arrangement between St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to the CBI funds? Also, we saw that the parliamentarians in the federal parliament got an increase or are getting an increase in their salaries. Will those in the NIA do anything similar, considering that they have not gotten any increase at all over the 15% increase segment that the civil servants, public servants would have gotten? Can you also say whether or not, I know you spoke about it in the budget address and previously about the NEVLIC rates. Will we be seeing an increase in those during the 2024 period? Thank you.
So the extra $5 million to Nevis, I'm not sure where the opposition would have got that from, because that is not accurate at all. I believe that the suggestion was that Prime Minister Drew would have said so in his press conference, and if he did, he perhaps misspoke, or perhaps what he said was misunderstood. But there has been no additional funds from CBI coming to Nevis other than what we have been getting since on about 2022. What I will say is that the Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, has made available to Nevis a portion of funding that the country is receiving each year from our friends from the Republic of China, Taiwan. And that does come out to about $5 million. So I'm not sure if that is where the confusion came from. Those funds last year would have been utilized in the ongoing project at the Pinnis Park that we expect to be completed very shortly. This year, those funds will be utilized to upgrade our facilities for Culturama and to assist with our water drilling project. And so I am not sure if that's what is being talked about, but certainly I can confirm that there's been no additional sums to the NIA from the citizenship by investment inflows. On the issue of fair share, in my last conversation with Prime Minister Drew, which was perhaps a week and a half ago, we discussed this, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I anticipate that he will want to say something on this in short order. I'm told that matters are nearing completion. And so I would leave that there for the moment and ask you to bear with me, Ms. Hewlett, but I would give him, of course, the courtesy of being the one to announce what that analysis shows. And so we expect that that will be available quite shortly. Salary increases, it has been a hot topic, I recognize. The federal government has taken a decision to increase salaries for parliamentarians in St. Kitts. That decision was based on a report that was generated on the 30th. In fact, I can certainly make copies of the report available. I think it's a public document to members of the press. But you would realize that the report is dated September 30th, 2019. So this report was actually commissioned by the Team Unity Administration under the leadership of Dr. Timothy Harris, and it would have made certain recommendations. The report was the members of the committee that were put in place, and let me just get it quickly because they all signed it, were Mr. Howard McEachran as chairman, Dr. Henry Brown, QC, lawyer, Mrs. B. John, Mr. Frank Maitland, Dr. Analdo Bailey. And I just want to confirm what they, if you can bear with me. So the members again were Mr. Howard McEachran, who chaired, Dr. Henry Brown, QC, barrister at law and legal advisor, Dr. Analdo Bailey, banking and finance consultant, Mrs. Brenda John, business consultant, Mr. Franklin Maitland, certified accountant. You realize that nobody from Nevis. Dr. Brown says he's from Nevis, but he's in St. Kitts. He lives there. But there's nobody from the NIA or the Nevis end was involved with this. It was something that was put together by Dr. Harris as Prime Minister, and they would have had their consultations. They say in their report that the invitations to meet with the Commission were refused by the leader of the opposition at the time, who was Dr. Douglas, and opposition parliamentarians, and it was refused by the chair of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, and it was refused by the chair of the Nevis Reformation Party. So those organizations did not participate in this. It is, as I said, a public document. I will certainly make it available to members of the press, but this would have made certain recommendations in terms of salary reviews. And the government as currently constituted, headed by Prime Minister Drew, would have tabled a motion in the House of the National Parliament, House of Assembly, last week, I think it was, Thursday, confirming the relevant increases. There's been a lot of debate about it. Those increases are applicable only to the federal parliamentarians. I want to emphasize that they are applicable only to the federal parliamentarians. Those of us who are there from the NIA, that is, the Honorable Eric Evelyn and myself, that we would benefit from that increase on St. Kitts. The other persons who are in the cabinet in Nevis, the Honorable Spencer Brand, the Honorable Troy Liebert, the Honorable Janelle Nisbet, would not benefit from those increases. And so the issue, as I understand it now, is where would Nevis go in relation to this? I can tell you that we have not yet taken a decision on it. It's a matter that we are looking at. The matter would have come up in our cabinet discussions in Nevis, and we will have a deliberate effort to look at this carefully. The report makes for quite compelling reading. It makes for compelling reading because it really points out that parliamentarians have not had an increase in pay since 2005. And so this year marks 19 years that there's been no adjustment in parliamentarians' salary or benefits. In the same period of time, 2005, the public servants on St. Kitts and Nevis have benefited cumulatively from a 41% increase in pay over that period of time. In fact, there are permanent secretaries now who are being paid at a higher rate than the ministers who are responsible, who they report to. Let me put it that way. Because while permanent secretaries and other public servants have gotten increments and periodic increases, the parliamentarians have been kept at the same level. I will remind the Nevisian public in particular that all the increases that were given to public servants in Nevis were not extended to the members of cabinet. So even the 15% that we gave in 2022, the members of cabinet did not benefit from any increase. It was exclusively for our public servants. And that 15% in 2022, remember we had done it in tranches. The final tranche was paid on the 1st of January 2024. So 2022 was 5%, 2023 was 5%, and 2024 was 5%. That follows on a 10% that was given in 2013, 14, and 15, spread over those 3 years. So the public servants have benefited over the years from increments and from salary increases, whereas the parliamentarian salaries have not moved in that period of time. And so this was commissioned. The report was the 30th of September 2019. It was not implemented by the then government, but the new government has decided that they will implement it now. I have a program, as we know, called On the Mark, and last evening I was there and somebody called in to say that they were against the salary increases. It was not the right time. And I asked the question, when do they think would be the right time? My view is that for politicians and parliamentarians, it will never be the right time. Some people have said that the Prime Minister and his team should have waited until after their first term. Some said that he should wait until the Bastia High School is under construction. There are lots of theories and opinions. But at the end of the day, I surmise that at any point in time that we would have talked about a salary increase for parliamentarians, the public would react negatively. It's just the way it is. And so we will have to make a decision, Ms. Hewlett, in Nevis, as to where we go, and we will announce that, of course, as we often do, as we go forward. NEVLEC rates, yes, NEVLEC rates are being adjusted. I do not have that information in front of me, but NEVLEC rates will be adjusted. We had removed, as you know, the fuel surcharge. There is not an intention at this point to reintroduce the fuel surcharge. Let me say that again. There is not an intention to reintroduce the fuel surcharge. But we do recognize that our base rates have not been adjusted in many years. And so there will be an effort to look at that and to make some adjustments. So we will hear more about NEVLEC rates in due course, but that is where we are at current. Are there any more questions for me?
Good morning, Premier Brantley.
Good morning.
Danella Thompson, Vaughan Radio. The government of Antigua and Barbuda is currently considering legislation for holding parents accountable for their children, that would be minors, criminal acts or behavior. As Premier and Leader of the Opposition in the National Parliament, what are your views on tabling such legislation in St. Kitts Nevis? Are there currently any plans following the completion of the Mundo Track or the Nevis Athletic Stadium to venture into sports tourism on the regional or international market? And considering the federal government has given its consent for the geothermal project and has secured funding, is it safe to say the initiative would be managed by Nevis, or would it be managed by the federal government, or are you seeking to a collaborative effort? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You always ask the most thought-provoking questions, you know. I hope you decide to go off and do journalism and come back and join the ranks of our journalists here. Thank you very much, Ms. Thompson, for your thought-provoking questions, as always. The first question, I'm a little stumped because I don't know how to answer. Should we hold parents accountable for the crimes of their minor children? I don't have an answer. I honestly don't. It is a matter, I think, that probably should be one of the matters for debate at the Literary and Debating Society competition in St. Kitts. I understand the sentiment. I understand where people would want to hold parents accountable. But it is, I think, it would be an interesting scenario if you are at work doing what you're supposed to do to provide for your family, and your child goes into the neighbor's premises and causes harm to someone, and next thing you are before the judge. You have no idea what your child did. You didn't send them to do it. You were hard at work doing what you do. You might have been at church praying when your child did something. It really is a difficult situation, and I think it is one that I am not certain that I would support in terms of holding parents accountable for their children. We all say the buck stops with parents, and as it should. They're the ones who are responsible for their children. But from a very young age, especially even more so now, with the availability and access to technology, we understand that children also develop their own minds and their own mindsets quite early, and might get themselves involved in things. And all of us in here, certainly those of us who have children, and even if we don't, we were children at some point ourselves, and we know how many times we disobeyed our parents. Despite our parents telling us, do not do that, we went ahead and did it anyway. So do you now hold the parent responsible? Throw them in jail because the child disobeyed? It's a difficult situation, I think, and I'm not so sure that the efforts in Antigua will bear any fruit, because I'm not even sure it will be legal and constitutionally proper to hold one person responsible for the actions of another, where that person is not involved in those actions. So I'll wait to see what they try to do in Antigua, but I believe philosophically that we'd have a problem trying to say to parents that, listen, you are now responsible legally if your child were to do harm to someone. Even where, as I said, the circumstances may be that you've warned your child, you've told them not to do it, and they still do it anyway. The Mondo Track facility, we certainly are hopeful that within this term, we will be able to build out an acceptable stadium there. But the track is already being used for a variety of purposes locally. We are happy this year to see St. Kitts coming over and using the track as well. Their own track, we're told, is under construction. So we expect I said during this term, because we don't have any plans to address it this year, but certainly we want to address the getting some additional stands and some seating area, what I refer to as a stadium, at the Mondo Track in due course. And you're absolutely correct. I think that we would be able to attract people here to train and to utilize the facilities there once those facilities have the additional infrastructure of a stadium. Federal government, you say, has secured funding for the geothermal project. That is not entirely accurate. The funding that we've secured is from the Caribbean Development Bank, $17 million US, $1 million for capacity building, and $16 million for the actual drilling. What we are seeking to engage now with is with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I mentioned that in my introduction, that we are seeking to engage with them to ask if they would provide funding for the rest of the project. Now, why is that important, Ms. Thompson? That is important because the $17 million from the CDB will not be enough to do the entire project. And so we have what we call a funding gap. And so we asked the Saudis if they would be willing to fill that gap, and that's why they would have come to do their familiarization visit. The Saudis have said to us they've never done a geothermal project before, but they are keenly interested in this project because of the potential for this project to transform St. Kitts and Nevis and make it the first country in the world which is 100% green. They're very enamored with that because that will clearly allow them to align themselves with a country that is doing something that will be groundbreaking in terms of what our efforts are in that regard. You say the federal government is involved with the project be controlled from St. Kitts. The resource is a Nevis resource, and I want to make that very clear. But what we have said to the federal government and what Dr. Joe and I have said, it is a resource that's located here, but it's a resource that should be available for the benefit of all the people of the Federation. So I don't think there should be any concern about control. We anticipate that we will have a cooperative approach to this project to harness the benefits of it for Nevis and St. Kitts. And the reason why St. Kitts is critical to this project is that all the modeling that we've done, everybody says, listen, it is actually better to have a larger project than a smaller project. Part of the difficulties over the years with this project is that the thinking for some time was just to do a project for Nevis. And that small project for Nevis, a 10-megawatt project, that was sort of the ambition. We have now said no. Let us go beyond that. Let us see if we can connect the two islands, single grid, and we have that power available throughout St. Kitts and Nevis. So whether you're in Kearn, you're in Keys, you're in Tabernacle, wherever you are in St. Kitts, you should have geothermal power, cheap, clean, reliable energy, powering your appliances, powering your homes, the hotels, Marriott, Park Hyatt, wherever they are, they should have geothermal energy. And I'm very, very pleased at the level of cooperation between SCELEC and NEVLEC and between the ministries in Nevis and those in St. Kitts. Of course, the Minister Conris Maynard is leading in terms of the discussions because he's the federal representative with the Saudis and the like. But Dr. Joe and I have given our consent and our imprimatur, if you will, for this project to move forward as a joint national project. And that is why you would recall, Ms. Thompson, that there was a resolution in the National Assembly, unprecedented, where we all committed to our joint pursuit of this resource. My hope would be that just like citizenship by investment, just so the geothermal will be a benefit to all. And whatever flows from it, not just the energy, but the economic benefits, the money that we expect to flow from it, that all the people will be able to share in that. And so that is why when we talk about fair share, we're talking about fair share across the board, that everybody in the country should have equal access to the resources of the country. If this resource was located in Keon, I would be saying the same thing, that we ought to be able to ensure that the people of Nevis can benefit from it. As God would have it, it happens to be located in Nevis, but that doesn't mean that the people in Keon should be denied a benefit from it. And that is what we are seeking to do. If you listen carefully to the federal government, you'd realize that really their plans for sustainable island state really rest on our ability to harness geothermal energy. Because if we can harness this green, clean energy, this cheap energy, if we can harness it, it means that we can then move to massive desalination, using our oceans to generate clean, potable water, because we now have a reliable, cheap source of energy. Desalination now is not in full use because of the cost of energy, and that problem will be solved. If we have more water, then all those farmers, wherever they are in the hills in St. Kitts and Nevis, can now access potable water to their farms. We now have water security. We then lead to food security. And so you realize how energy security leads to water security, leads to food security, leads to the sustainable island state that the Prime Minister has championed and that we as well share. We weren't using that language in Nevis, but we have certainly been acting in that way as we try to build out the Federation in a sustainable way. I see renewable energy and geothermal energy in particular as being our gold. It's our diamonds, it's our oil, it's our natural resource. It's a gift, and we now have to harness it for the benefit not only of us who are here today, but of generations of Nevisians and Kittitians to come. So my anticipation is that we will have a cooperative framework in relation to this particular project where all the people benefit from realizing the aspirations of geothermal energy for the benefit of St. Kitts and Nevis. Are there any more questions for me?
Hello, good morning all.
Good morning.
My name is Bjorn Hanley, and I am an independent media professional with special focus on Africa and the Caribbean. And you can find me on YouTube and Facebook. My YouTube channel is Beyond Love Africa. Also the same on Facebook. Follow and subscribe. Now, question number one, Mr. Premier. Well, before I start, just this morning I was thinking to myself that earlier this week on Tuesday, I was a Rams worker, a Rams warehouse worker, and now, today I'm a professional journalist with questions in hand and the cameras on me. Life is amazing, right? Question number one. In regards to the hospital and airport projects, do you have pictures, drawings, or video animation that show how these important facilities will look once they are completed? And also, do you have an end date for the hospital and airport project as yet? Question number two, the government announced earlier a pension scheme for non-established government workers. However, there are established large private companies in St. Kitts and Nevis who have been in business for over 50 years, making lots of money, but they have no pension plan in place for their workers. Question is, can the government do something about this? And do you think that this is fair? Question number three, moving to foreign policy now. For several years, I have been very disappointed with the foreign policy of St. Kitts and Nevis as it relates to Africa. For example, at the last Prime Minister's press conference, the Foreign Minister, Dr. Denzel Douglas, named several countries in St. Kitts and Nevis that we will be working with. However, I took note that there, out of 54 African countries, not even one was mentioned. And also yourself, Mr. Premier, you served as Foreign Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis for 7 years. And I took note, out of the 54 African countries, you did not take a trip to any one of them. Considering we are a 98% black country, St. Kitts and Nevis is predominantly black African people. So what is the reason why St. Kitts and Nevis is not making any effort to reunite our people with our motherland, Africa? Question number 4, visa issues between the Caribbean and African countries continue to be a major problem. Just a few days ago, a very popular bishop named Joshua Mapunga from Zimbabwe was detained in Dominican Republic for 4 days, and then he was deported to Jamaica. Also, a very popular YouTuber by the name of Wadamaya from Ghana with 1.5 million subscribers. He was denied a visa to Antigua, and then he made a Facebook post, and the Prime Minister himself, Gaston Brown, came on the Facebook post and approved his visa on his Facebook post. So do you think these visa issues are acceptable considering we are one people, the Caribbean and Africa? And do you think that having influencers such as these two men, do you think they are a benefit to the Caribbean in terms of our tourism and bringing economic prosperity to the Caribbean? Because there are millions of very wealthy Africans out there. So what are your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley, and welcome back. We missed you here at the Premier's press conference, and I'm happy that you say that you have moved. It shows how easy it is to be a journalist. You move from rams to journalism in a day, you know. So that was, I think, the light moment for today. So welcome back, Mr. Hanley. We're happy to have you. You asked about the hospital and the airport projects. You asked whether there were pictures, renderings. In fact, we had done at the very start of the hospital project. Because that project has been delayed, perhaps you have forgotten, but we did actually an animation that was put out. So I can try and find that for you and send it to you again of that project, or how we anticipate that project will look. You see how the project will look already from the outside because the exterior is finished. We in fact painted it and have it finished so that you will have a perception looking at it now as to how that final project will be done. As I've said in the past, the only thing left for us to do now is the interior. And that is what we have had the delays on, and we hope to be moving forward on that very shortly. On the airport, I'm told that the renderings are being completed, and it is my anticipation that for the next set of consultations commencing in March, that we should have renderings available. Those will be put out widely to the media and also will be on the NIA website so that persons can look. You asked for an end date for both projects. I don't want to hazard an end date at this point. Let me get them started. And then once we can do that, we can talk about an end date. But the anticipation currently is that our hospital should restart this year and the airport should also start this year. I think once we can get that done, then we can talk about what the anticipated end date of those projects is going to be. The pension scheme for any workers, you asked about private companies. I have no control, naturally, over what private companies do. I encourage them, of course, to pay their workers well and to put in place the necessary protections for their workers. I think that it will be a matter for the government to consider whether legislatively you can force private companies to put in place some type of pension scheme. You mentioned pension, but some of them also do not have adequate health coverage, insurance for their workers. So both will need to be looked at. So I think you raise a very important point. And it is a matter that I think we need to look at carefully. I am meeting with the Chamber of Commerce at their quarterly conference in Nevis shortly, very shortly, I think in another week or two. And I will certainly raise this with them because I think you've raised an important point. You talk about foreign policy. As you said, I was a former foreign minister, and so those questions are perhaps better directed at the current dispensation in Bastille, the current foreign ministry. And we know that Dr. Denzil Douglas, who was Prime Minister for 20 years and a seasoned diplomat and politician, that he's now the Foreign Minister. I share your view, Mr. Hanley. I believe that the future of the Caribbean lies with Africa. And I've said so for some time, that we ought, for all the reasons that you have said, seek to have a closer relationship with Africa. If my colleagues in the cabinet that I served in at Team Unity are truthful, they will say that I was always a very strong advocate for directing our attention south and engaging what I refer to as South-South cooperation. And we need to animate that relationship with Africa. You said that you were disappointed in me that I had not been to Africa, but that is not actually true, because I signed diplomatic relations with Senegal in Dakar, and I would have traveled also to Morocco in Africa. I admit that I did not go to as many African countries as I would have liked, but I certainly would have gone to Morocco and engaged at very high-level diplomatic discussions in Morocco, and I would have gone to Senegal, where I signed with their foreign minister at the time diplomatic relations in Dakar. In fact, I was very pleased in Senegal to have been accompanied by Eustace Theo Wallace from right here in Nevis, who speaks French. And that was helpful for me because I don't speak French, so he was able to translate. So I just want to correct that I have, in fact, visited the continent, although I would admit that perhaps not as often and not as many places as I would have liked to. During my tenure as foreign minister, because I'm going to wrap that now into your visa question as well, I thought that there was an intrinsic value in pursuing visa waiver arrangements with the rest of the world. And I know there were times when we announced these visa waiver agreements that members of the public scoffed. Many of them said, well, nobody wants to go there. But that was never the point. The point is that we wanted the St. Kitts and Nevis passport to be the most powerful passport of its kind in our region, the Caribbean and Latin America. In the Caribbean, we had, through the efforts of the foreign ministry during my tenure, drawn level with the Bahamas and were exceeded only by Barbados. I gather that we are falling behind now because for whatever reason, I'm not sure, we have not carried on with that momentum that we had. The only country that I gather we have signed visa waiver arrangements with in the last 2 years now has been Zimbabwe, I'm told. And I gather that the Saudi Arabian government has granted us a special arrangement where we become only the 4th country in this hemisphere that can access the Saudi visa online. So they've allowed us an online entry to Saudi Arabia. Only Panama, Canada, and the United States have that privilege. St. Kitts and Nevis becomes a 4th. So that is a significant development, in my view, that this government, new government, has achieved. That is the federal government and Dr. Douglas. Of course, a lot of hard work over the years has resulted in us regaining a qualified visa waiver with Canada as well. And that would have come, again, under Dr. Douglas's tenure. I did say to my friends in Canada jokingly that they waited until I left to grant us what we've been agitating for 7 years. But, you know, these things happen within their own time. And to Dr. Douglas's credit, he did extend thanks for the work that had preceded him, because I believe he understood that that work had been done, and so this was the position. But more specifically to your point about Africa, I believe that we can benefit from a greater engagement with Africa. I have said in the cabinet when I was a member, and I say it now again publicly, that we are being foolish. I know it's strong language, but it is language that I would use. We are being foolish in the Caribbean by continuing to look northwards, continuing to look towards the United States, continuing to look towards Canada, continuing to look towards Europe, when they themselves are looking to Africa. So how odd is it that we as black people who are of Africa are looking north when north is looking south? Because all of them are now looking to see how they can engage in a greater way with Africa. You look at a country like Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, has some of the largest deposits of minerals that the world now needs. Coltan, all of these minerals for our cell phones, all of the chips that are manufactured. And we see China rushing in. We see France, you realize now in the Sahel region, where you have Niger, Burkina Faso, and some other country, Mali, I think, have told France that they must leave, and they're now broken with ECOWAS because they want to have their own affiliation. Africa is where it's happening. Congo has one of the youngest populations in the world. One of the youngest populations in the world. Africa on a whole has one of the youngest populations in the world. They have resources. They have youth that give vigor and vitality. And I often wonder, what are we doing in the Caribbean? What are we doing? Because we are always making trips to America, to Canada, and very rarely, in fact, the only prime minister that I've seen that has reached out in a significant way, it appears, to Africa is Mia Mottley, Prime Minister Mottley of Barbados. I've seen her in Kenya. I've seen her in Ghana. We have not been reaching out in the way. I had a very moving experience in Senegal. I went to a place called Gorée Island. And Gorée Island, there was a dungeon where our forefathers were kept before they were shipped off to the Atlantic. And there was this famous door of no return. Once they went through that door and onto the ship, they never came back. And for me, it was a deeply spiritual. You couldn't help it. The guide was there, but there was something, almost like there was a spirit moving in that place, that you could not help but feel and hear and sense the level of misery that our people would have endured in those dungeons before they came here. Caribbean people must understand that only the strongest survive that journey, you know. Because people were captured inland, taken to the coast, kept in dungeons, put on ships, sailed across, and this wasn't a luxury liner. They were shackled in the bowels of ships, sailed across the Atlantic to come here. Only the strongest survive. And what does that tell us? That we come from a bloodline that is the strongest that Africa had to offer. But we have not been willing, it appears, to engage with Africa. I recall some time ago when Dr. Tedros, it was, I believe he's of Ethiopia, was vying to be head of the WHO. And I recall the testy meeting that we had at the CARICOM level about who would support Tedros. And there were some Caribbean countries, no, aren't he? Are you going with Africa? Let us go. Because there were countries from the West that were also vying. And I had to speak up. I said, but let us throw our support with Ethiopia. And I have been an advocate, and I continue to be an advocate, that St. Kitts and Nevis should have an embassy in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. I have said so. Ethiopia is the seat of the African Union. The African Union, as you say, is 54 members strong. Could you imagine if those 54 countries of Africa were to be able to pool their diplomatic weight with the 13 countries of CARICOM at the UN? That gives us nearly 60 countries, nigh 1/3 of the members of the UN. Could you imagine if Africa and the Caribbean voted as a bloc? That on important issues, they know that they have to deal with Caribbean and Africa. It is a win-win-win situation. But for whatever reason, we have not followed up. And I think it's a mistake. Now, by way of self-defense, let me say that I did try my very best to engage with Africa. If you look at the 7 years, we developed diplomatic relations with a large number of African countries that we didn't have before. And we developed visa waiver arrangements with a large number that we didn't have before. So I can remember countries like Mozambique, Kenya, Senegal, a number of countries. I did, my last trip I recall as foreign minister, I was in Serbia, and I was able to develop relations with countries like Sao Tome and Principe, small African countries. Niger, I believe, we had relations with. Burkina Faso, we developed relations with. So the truth is that it was an ongoing effort. I would like to see that effort sustained. And I'm not saying anything here publicly that I have not suggested privately to the new foreign minister, because we had a very well-oiled machinery. From the office in New York, there's a young lady there called Ghislaine Williams, who was excellent at engaging with her counterparts, particularly in the African embassies, to try and get visa waiver arrangements. We also had in London our High Commissioner Kevin Isaac, Dr. Isaac, excellent at getting these things done. And so I think that it's an important initiative From Taiwan, we were able to get Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, I think, now known as Eswatini, visa waiver. All of these are countries in Africa that we were able to cement relations with. Sierra Leone, Zambia, the Gambia, all of these we would have done during my tenure. I believe, Mr. Hanley, that more effort is needed, concentrated effort is needed. In fact, I believe that what we need at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in St. Kitts and Nevis now, and if we don't want to do it at the level of St. Kitts and Nevis, then certainly at the CARICOM level, we need a desk, a unit that is specifically just about Africa and promoting our interests with Africa. One of the things that moved me, again, about Senegal, and I will end here, is that when I was there, I attended a reception. And a chap who was a former foreign minister of Senegal embraced me. First time I'm meeting him. And he said, my brother. And I said to him, why do you call me your brother? And he said, but we are brothers. He said that the Caribbean is part of the 6th region of Africa, which is their diaspora. And that Africa, in fact, recognizes us as part of them. Because, as you know, Africa has 5 regions: East, West, North, South, and Central. And so the diaspora is the 6th region of Africa. And he greeted me with a hug as his brother because he said, I am from Africa. And that meant a lot to me because I'd never been to Africa before. And here was a man greeting me as being his brother and telling me that I'm part of Africa. So I do believe that we need to do more. We need to have more of Africa taught in our schools. The history of Africa did not begin with slavery. Civilizations in Africa that we need to learn about. The wealth that Africa would have generated. The level of intellectual capacity. To this day, Mr. Hanley, they can't figure out how the pyramids of Egypt were constructed. To this day. This was all technology and techniques developed by Africans. And yet we, who are of Africa, continue to look to Europe. When, as I said, Europe is looking to Africa. So we have, I think, a reorientation that needs to happen. And the Caribbean needs to wake up to the reality that Africa and our relationship with Africa is where our future lies. Are there any more questions for me?
Okay, Hewlett, Department of Information. I'm asking this question on behalf of ZIZ. What is the status of the works at the Nevis Performing Arts Center, the cost and anticipated timeline of those renovations? Also, what is the Ministry of Tourism and the Nevis Tourism Authority currently doing to continue to attract ships to the island? Thank you.
The works at NEPAC, in fact, just this morning I signed off on the works on the roof, that those be undertaken. And we would anticipate that those works will be completed in time for Culturama. That is the date, so July. We have had some issues where that roof has leaked from the time that NEPAC was done. And so we are having now to redo the entire roof at quite a cost. I believe the estimate that I saw was just under $400,000 just to do that. So it's a significant cost for us. We also have had some issues with the electrical and some issues with the air conditioning. Certainly the electrical, those problems as well have existed since the inception. So we're trying to resolve those. Those would be additional costs. I'm anticipating that the overall project should be about $1 million just to get NEPAC back in good order. But we anticipate doing so. We have a pretty significant conference that's happening here as well, an international conference, and they need the use of NEPAC. So we expect to be able to do that. What are we doing to attract more crews? I believe I've said it often that cruise is not a main focus for our tourism thrust. We are focused on our hotels and getting heads in beds. Where we can attract cruise passengers, our policy is to treat cruise as a portal, as a gateway. Our hope would be, for example, that the people who came here on the Azura, that they would have come, the captain would have played golf, they would have done golf, they would have done their tours, and they say, you know what, we want to come back to this island with our families to spend some time at one of our hotels. That's how we treat crews. Other jurisdictions see cruise as an end in itself, meaning let's get as many passengers as we can because that's where we make our money. Nevis has just had a different approach to it. So when we go out, we do talk to small cruise ships. We do talk to the higher end ships, and the objective, we hope, is for them to visit on a cruise and then come back to stay with us in our hotels, because that's where we feel the island makes the most money from the tourism industry, is to have people staying at our resorts, at our villas, at our guest houses. That's where we think we do best.
Just a follow-up question. Is there any program or policy in place to assist tourism stakeholders here to market what they have available, so that we have the cruise industry that's big in St. Kitts, where you see sometimes tourists would come over to Nevis for tours and what's not, but a lot of it is through one portal. So can they maybe learn how to be taught how to market their individual tours so that they can have bookings directly from the ship and that money goes directly into their hands?
So we have nothing in place at the moment, but it is something that is worthwhile looking at. We have one particular business here, Lime, who has done, which has done quite well. Mr. Randy Jeffers has created quite a stir and created, a niche for himself by catering. And when the cruise ships come into St. Kitts, they charter over, and he takes care of them over here. There is room, in my view, for others to engage in that, but we have no particular program where, as you say, to teach people how to do it. So it might be something that we would need to engage in, but we have not done so yet. But I'll certainly take that on advisement and see whether or not that is something that we can engage in as a Ministry of Tourism on Nevis. Mr. Bart?
Good morning, Premier.
Good morning to you.
Last year, you mentioned that the company called BEAD was supposed to drill
Yes.
some wells on Nevis. They had not delivered. And I think you said that you had paid, or the Nevis Island Administration had paid about $12 million to BEAD?
No. We paid to BEAD, the deposit under that agreement was $760,000 US dollars. Was the deposit. I wish I had $12 million, Mr.
Okay.
Bart. No, we're close.
Well,
The overall contract was $2 million US.
$2 million US.
And we paid $760,000 US
Okay,
as a down payment.
all right. Now, the question is then, you indicated that the matter is being taken to court.
Yes.
What is the Nevis Island Administration seeking? Is it seeking to have BEAD deliver on its contract, or are you seeking to get the money back?
Okay. So, fair question. Is that the only question
No,
you have? Okay, so let me just get your question, then I'll respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question relates to the idea of supporting the redevelopment of the Vance Armour International Airport. Now, just last night, you yourself said that the Four Seasons was basically a game changer on the island of Nevis. Now, when you redevelop the Vance Armour International Airport, you have competition from Antigua, from St. Kitts, from St. Martin. How do you propose to generate more travel into Nevis, into the Vance Armour International Airport? Do you see, for example, another name brand resort being helpful in generating the kind of traffic that you need to support these and sustain the operations of the new redeveloped airport? That's my second question. And thirdly, just to get an update with regards to the discussions between the federal government and the Nevis administration in relation to the sharing of revenues coming from the CBI and other issues related to the enhanced collaboration or relations between Nevis and on St. Kitts. Right. Those are my three.
The last question is perhaps the easiest for me because I addressed it earlier to indicate that the Prime Minister and I would have spoken about a week and a half ago on that matter. He advises that the analysis that was being undertaken is almost done, and I did say that I would defer to him to make a public statement on that when that becomes available. So I wouldn't want to get into that at this point in terms of the CBI and the fair share arrangement that we've advocated for. But the last that he told me is that that work is nearing its completion. So I anticipate that we'll be in a position to speak to that shortly. Other areas of collaboration, I would say that the collaboration has been quite good thus far. We have had opportunities on geothermal, for example, where the Prime Minister led a delegation to Saudi Arabia for the first CARICOM Saudi summit, and he asked me to send someone to be a part of that delegation from the NIA specifically to speak to the Saudis about geothermal. So I thought those are unprecedented developments. Those have never happened in the history of our country before. So we have to point to them and say, well, those are things that it's a new approach, let us put it, to collaboration between St. Kitts and Nevis and between the NIA and the federal government. So we have done that. The Prime Minister himself would have said publicly, as I would have, that I would have gone to London on personal business, and while there he asked me to intervene with some parliamentarians in the UK on issues. This was surrounding the time when the UK had imposed visa restrictions on Dominica, and there were some concerns, and I was able to meet and to report back both to him and to the foreign minister. So again, areas of collaboration which were hitherto unknown, because I'm the leader of the opposition and I'm in London meeting, and he felt confident enough that he could ask me to do that for him, and he would have reported on that. So I think that generally speaking, there's a high degree of collaboration. Could it be better? Yes. We feel that there's still an absence of sharing of information in a timely way, but I think a lot of that has more to do with the technocrats and the people at the ministerial level than it does with those at the ministers themselves. Because the ministry level, I said ministerial, forgive me, those at the ministry level, meaning the permanent secretaries and heads of department, etc. I think people have grown accustomed to doing things in a particular way. So a lot of departments in Nevis still complain that they get last-minute notification of things, last-minute information, a scholarship deadline, and we get it just a couple of days before, which makes it difficult, if not impossible, for us to mobilize over here. So those are some of the things in terms of the day-to-day workings of that collaboration, which I think still needs some work. But I think at the highest level, I can't complain. I think that the collaboration has been excellent thus far, and I'm quite happy with that at this stage. BEAD. Well, let me leave BEAD for last, if you don't mind, and I'll deal with your second question now that has to do with the Van Sam International Airport. You said with competition close by. You recall, Mr. Bart, that I tried to point out to the public that it was not our intention to compete necessarily with RLB or with Antigua or with St. Martin. In fact, when we looked at the option of doing a full-fledged international airport, the numbers were close to $100 million US, which was well outside our capacity. And so we went to Plan B. And Plan B basically is to develop what we're calling a private jet facility at the airport there, which will also be good enough to cater to the regional traffic, the Inter-Caribbeans and the LEATs. Well, the LEAT is no more. The Inter-Caribbeans and the, what's it going to St. Kitts? I used to come to Nevis, Silver Airways, and those types of airlines. But also to cater to a particular type of aircraft that American and some of the carriers are using for regional travel, something that they call a regional jet. It's an Embraer 145, I think it is, and it holds, generally, it's configured between 70 and 90 passengers. So it's not the wide-body jets that will come into RLB. Nevis is not, and even after the completion, will not be able to accommodate those. So we are not over here saying, American, come to Nevis instead of St. Kitts, or come to Nevis instead of Antigua. No. We are saying that we can cater to the smaller Embraer-type jets, which are regional. Those are the ones that, for example, American is now using into Anguilla, and we're told into Dominica from Miami. And we're saying that we want to be a home for the private jets. During the winter months, when our season is at its height, If you see Juliana Airport in St. Martin, or you see RLB in St. Kitts, there are quite a large number of private jets parked there. Our research, however, tells us that the people from those private jets are not in St. Kitts or in St. Martin. Those airports are, to some extent, being used as a parking lot because they have parked there because that's what's available. But those people are actually in Nevis, they're in St. Bart's, they're in Anguilla. Anguilla is doing exactly what we are trying to do, building out their infrastructure where they can now say, listen, if you're a private jet owner, come into Anguilla, fly to Anguilla, park in Anguilla, be refueled in Anguilla, pay your fees in Anguilla, have your hangar in Anguilla, do everything in Anguilla. So Anguilla now will capture what it is currently losing to nearby airport in St. Martin. We are seeing a market for that same thing. So in a way, we're not trying to compete as much as we're trying to complement the services already available in the country. So you're not going to see a British Airways landing in Nevis. We're not trying to attract, we can't. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the physical capacity to accommodate. The infrastructure would not be able to accommodate that. But we are hopeful that by next Christmas, if we can get this going as we plan to get it going, you will be seeing the private jets parked here. A lot of the homeowners, for example, in Nevis actually have private jets. Some of them do come into Nevis already on their private jets. That's why you have occasionally jets landing over there. But most of them say to us that because of insurance and other reasons, they have to land elsewhere and park elsewhere. Now, part of what we lose out as well is that a lot of the crew on those private jets, they as well are staying elsewhere. So if the passengers are in St. Bart's or in whatever, the crew might be someplace else, right? So we're trying to cater to that because that is the level at which Nevis is pitching its market in terms of our tourism. We are high-end, high yield, low impact. That's our model for tourism. It goes back to the question about cruise that was asked, that our model is high-end, high yield, low impact. We prefer to have 100 guests coming to Nevis paying $1,000 a night than to have 1,000 guests coming paying $100 a night. And think about it. I know some people say the math is the same, but it's actually not. Our model is a different model. And so that's what we're trying to cater to. BEAD. The BEAD situation has been a complex situation. BEAD, as we said in 2017, we would have paid BEAD US $760,000 as a down payment on 3 wells, total cost of $2 million US. And BEAD didn't deliver, in our opinion. We tried to engage with them, that didn't go anywhere. We eventually went to court to try to recover. Not all, but some, because under the contract we were not able to recover all of the monies that we had paid them. And BEAD did not respond. We in fact had a default judgment against BEAD for that amount. I will say publicly that since all that, BEAD re-entered the Federation and it has done successful drilling in Keon, in St. Kitts. And BEAD has indicated an interest in coming back to Nevis to complete the drilling that they should have done in 2017 in Nevis. And we have, as a cabinet, taken the decision that we will at least give them an opportunity to advise us whether they're in a position to now complete that contract. That is separate and apart to the bidding process that is complete, because we have evaluated those bids and we have looked at them with a view to determining what might offer the best value for money. But even as we were doing that, BEAD approached and said, hey, we know we've had these problems, but we're now finished with what we're doing on St. Kitts, and we are minded to come back to Nevis to finish what we ought to have done 7 years ago. And so we are having that conversation with them. Bearing in mind, as I say, that they're already holding a significant sum of money from the NIA. We have a default judgment, but that default judgment has not been satisfied. And so we are saying, can we do a reset and engage with them? But we are now waiting on them to advise us as to what they can do and what they propose they can deliver for the people of Nevis. So that is where we are insofar as BEAD is concerned at this point. Our objective as a government, Mr. Bart, is to get more water available to the people of Nevis. That is our objective. And however we can get to that objective, that is where we want to go. So We're looking at what would be the most cost-effective and time-effective way to get us additional water into our system. Remember that in Nevis we have invested upwards of 40 million EC dollars over the course of the last decade or so in upgrading our infrastructure in terms of distribution and storage. We are now prepared to spend money to upgrade in terms of our availability of water. So we have bigger tanks and better tanks. We have the polyurethane pipes. We've replaced all the old pipes. Nowhere in Nevis now would have any low water pressure. We've solved all of those problems. In fact, I believe I can say with some confidence, have one of the best water distribution systems in the region. But we now need additional water. And that was the objective of this government in 2017, when we signed the deal with BEAD, was to get that additional water. BEAD did not deliver. And so we were working on that and finding ourselves now, 7 years later, in some difficulty in terms of water. Well, it is our hope that we will hear what they have to say in terms of whether they can now deliver on that contract that they would have had some 7 years ago. So that is where we currently are in that situation. Either way, whether with BEAD or without BEAD, we anticipate mobilizing very quickly. In fact, I'm thinking that we should be in a position to mobilize in the month of March in relation to drilling. It is our ambition to have at least one well providing us with water by the time we get around to the summer months this year. And so that is the objective. Yes.
Now, you did indicate that the Nevis Island Administration, Ministry of Tourism, is not competing in terms of the airport infrastructure with the other islands close by. But what about the component of sustainability, traffic? So what do you think will help to drive additional traffic into Nevis based on the model that you have described? Would new hotels, resort, name brand type things be helpful?
Yes.
Or do you have any other plans in place?
Yes. So I think I neglected to answer that part of your question, Mr. Barr. Thanks for reminding me. You're absolutely correct. We need, I believe, an additional one, maybe two, significant branded properties on this island. I think will help drive traffic. The Four Seasons is quite enamored with the idea of this expansion of the airport, because from time to time they also have group travel, and those groups will charter. So if they have a group of 200, two charters out of Miami landing directly at Van Sammer International would suit them as well. So there is an opportunity, I think, for that group business, one, small groups that is, and two, having additional hotel stock, but as you say, boutique branded. That's Nevis's model. So we are also out there actively having those conversations about people coming in and doing developments here of that quality and that kind that we feel will fit within the model that is Nevis. Nevis doesn't have the size or the space to allow it to be all things to all people. We're not a Jamaica where you could have mass tourism in one end and high-end tourism in another. Here on the island, we really can only have one or the other, and we've opted for the high end. That's what we want to do. So you're absolutely correct, and we're having those conversations. I'm always loath to make announcements because so many announcements in the past have come to naught. And so I'm leaving that simply to say we're having those conversations, and we are optimistic that we'll get something done. But we are insistent when we have those conversations that it has to be something that is branded at a particular level. Four Seasons and above is what we are looking at for Nevis. Any other questions for me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Happy leap year. I hope that you all go out to church now and say a prayer. You don't have to be in church to say a prayer. So say a prayer. Today is the National Day of Prayer, and I wish you all the very best to you and your families, and hope to see you tonight at this service here in Nevis, for those of you who are from Nevis, here in Nevis at the New Testament Church of God in Bath Village. Thank you, and I look forward and hope to see you next month for our monthly press conference. Thank you very much.